he had expanded from simple pet sitting into a range of pet ecosystem products, from pet food to pet insurance. He then launched on the ASX, and this is such a fond memory for me because I was there in my capacity as executive assistant to Professor Schnoozy Macduff. Now, we have it on pretty reasonable authority that Schnoozy was the first dog ever to ring the bell at the stock exchange.
She might even have left a P-mail.
So look, hopefully you've listened to these case studies and you've thought, oh, that's interesting, but you might quite fairly be thinking, yeah, but what can I learn from it? How is this going to help me? Well, there are three things that really occur to us.
Firstly, this is something that Nick Whitehouse said to us, and it has really stayed with me, that constraint is the mother of invention. Here, it is no secret. The funding environment is very different. We heard from some of the many startup pitches last night, this morning, and of course, this festival was going for a while, a week prior. And it's a very, very different environment, but that can actually be a major strength, because here you need to build what works with customers. That means that when you really do grow, you're ready to scale. And that's, I think, why you keep seeing these kind of success stories. Tim Flum, Airtasker, who we also spoke to in this book, same thing. He's in LA now, scaling across the US.
Second thing is let your community or your customers lead your product. We saw this quite obviously with the sellers we just showcased. Wenee, she had a community of 21 million followers in total across social media. It was easy for her to listen to them. Alexis, he conducted research the old-fashioned way. The builders who knew they had a product, they immersed themselves in the communities they wanted to help. And from there, they could actually build a product that was going to solve a problem.
That's right, but before you do all of that, it's important to get your hands dirty. Do things that don't scale. When Alexis launched MadPaws, he was such a good seller that his website crashed from all the traffic. And so what did he do? He hit the phones up to 100 phone calls a day, because this is a classic double-sided marketplace, and that marketplace needs two sides. So he made it happen until the website was able to get back online.
So don't get us wrong, if you're launching a startup, you need to find solutions that will scale. But at the same time, you need to be willing to roll up your sleeves and do the unscalable work when you need to. You do that, and you might just maintain Australia's tradition of punching up.
Now, this is all well and good, but how do you actually do something with it? I know we've got a lot of founders in this room. How do you ride your unicorn? And we suggest something that we call climbing the pyramid of priorities.
I apologize for my terrible Canva design
Yes,
skills.
I see the peering, apologies.
Yes, so we coined this term, but we found that every single founder we spoke to did some version of this. And the pyramid of priorities works in three ways. At the top of the pyramid, you have the most serious problems, but also the most obvious. These are the problems that will sink you on day one. For example, if you launch your company and you don't have the right regulatory permissions and you close immediately. If you don't have the right technology and your website crashes terminally, so much so that you can't bring people back. Now, these problems, whilst they're terminal, they're also pretty obvious. These are the problems that keep founders up at night. We are much more concerned with the next two stages of the pyramid, which is what's going to ruin you in 6 months from now, and what might ruin you eventually.
That's right, and I can tell you something. What will ruin you eventually will keep you up at night every night of your founder life. There is no end to that list. Actually, triaging the difference between what's going to ruin you in 6 months and eventually is the key, because in our jurisdictions, in our countries, it's all about that judicious risk-taking. So for example, what could ruin you 6 months from now? I'm a lawyer by background, and I apologize for that in advance. When I look at a startup, the first thing I'm going to worry about is regulation. But one of the number one mistakes that someone like me can make is worrying about, let's draft the import-export contract for our amazing product. I don't have a single customer, the product is barely working. The problem of the specialist.
It doesn't just apply to lawyers either, as much as we might like to hate on them. If you're an engineer, you might quite rightly focus on having the best possible platform you can. That's great, but if you're worrying about features you're not going to use 5 years from now, it might be a moot point if you haven't attracted enough customers 6 months from now. So if you can be honest with your problems, if you can detach from your own area of expertise and answer to yourself, what am I going to need to worry about in the future, and what's something that I want to focus on, then you'll be a step closer towards climbing the pyramid.
That's right. So the CEO of Anthropic famously has declared that we'll see the first one-person unicorn by 2026. Of course, it's totally within his interest to declare that.
And we're not in a position to comment on whether or not that time frame is accurate or realistic. All we'll say is, why does it need to be somewhere else? Whenever you look into fintech news, we're always hearing about Silicon Valley or Shenzhen or Singapore, but why not here? Australia has such a deep pool of talent, as is exemplified in this very room at this very festival. Why can't the first one-person unicorn come from Australia?
Absolutely. So I want to thank you very, very much for your attention today. Our QR code has displayed. We are thrilled about that because we sense the danger as well. And as Tara said, our book is coming out through Wiley in November 2025. It's this year. Please feel free to follow us on our various socials because we are content creators now, I suppose.
But in the meantime, thank you so much for sharing your Wednesday morning with us. We will be here all day. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to come up and ask. We love chatting to people. We apologize if we say a bit too much, but have a spectacular festival. Thank you very much.
We also have Wenee and Thomas in the mastermind at 2 p.m. So if you are a founder, again, it's only accessible by founders. They will be there at 2 p.m. So we do have time for a couple of questions. Throwing balls is not in my core skill. So, but Kate's like, I'm on this, because we don't have the insurance to cover it. Awesome. So does anyone have any questions for Wenee or Thomas? And while we're throwing that around, I'll ask the first one. Can you tell me about what drove your decision to open a cat cafe?
Oh, yeah, we skipped over this little detail in our presentation. Shall I start? So, at the time, we and I were working in content marketing, and we were running a PR campaign for a new kind of plasterboard that was 15% more flexible than the existing plasterboard in the market, and we wanted to shoot ourselves.
Thank you, USG Moral, sorry.
We're sure it's a fantastic plasterboard. But then, we took a holiday to Chiang Mai, and while we were there, Wenee became really obsessed with visiting this cat cafe, and I had no idea what it was.
It was the #1 tourist attraction on TripAdvisor, and it was called Catmosphere.
And we went there, and it was as magical as you'd expect. And by the end of the session, we found ourselves thinking, wouldn't it be fantastic if we were running a PR campaign for a space-themed cat cafe? We both had a chuckle about it, and then we thought, or we could open one. And we had no idea what we were doing. And if we had known how difficult it was going to be, we never would have attempted it.
So, that sounds familiar to anyone?
Yeah, it's like the gift of ignorance when you're a founder. You do something because you don't know how hard it's going to be.
That's right. So the original owner of Catmosphere, a white hat hacker from Austria, invested with us, and we launched our PR campaign in 4 days. We went viral across Sydney, so we raised $40,000.
It was the year of the cat. We were just so fortunate. 2015, everyone was obsessed with cat cafes.
We did this crazy thing where we promised it would be open by like July, and it was February. And we had never done bricks and mortar business before. I'd done a tech business prior to that. But we made promises, tickets had been sold, so off we went. And we did it. We partnered with a cat rescue organization. That is the purpose of Catmosphere. It's a social business. And basically, within 5 months, we signed the rental deal, done the renovations, gotten the cafe manager on board, gotten the cats ready for their close-ups. And on opening weekend sunrise from Channel 7 came by. We dressed in astronaut suits to honor the cats. They fearlessly gone where no cat had gone before to our cat cafe. And Weekend Sunrise actually broke some of our lights as they rushed up the stairs. We did not have insurance for that either.
We sold it at the end of 2017, and next month it actually hits its 10-year anniversary.
10 years!
Amazing.
That's awesome.
New question. You said about the one-person unicorn. There's like 100 people in this room wondering what that could look like.
Oh, you want to leave this on?
Well, yeah, I suppose so. I mean, I work with startups a lot. I work down at UNSW Founders, and I coach startups there, which wouldn't be any surprise. And I think the interesting thing about a one-person unicorn is that it has a big promise, but it's probably the wrong focus in many ways. Because it's really about looking at what skill sets you have and what skill sets you don't. Why AI can solve many things, but that doesn't mean it needs to solve every single thing. And I think when I see AI applied really, really well, it's through someone who has a deep knowledge of the industry they're trying to help or innovate, and then they understand the various applications of AI. So I think where the first one-person unicorn will actually come from is someone who has those attributes. You know, the average age of a successful startup founder is 45, not the university dropout of 20. So I think that alone is quite interesting.
All I'll add as well is that when we talk about one-person unicorns, a lot of it is hypothetical right now, but the landscape is already changing. So I work as an early employee for a Sydney-based startup. 10 years ago, the gold standard in Sydney for a fast-growing startup was a massively expanding employee base, because that signaled to VCs that you had so much work to do that you needed more employees. Now that's completely changed. Now the model is a growing revenue base with a static workforce. The idea being that that workforce should be able to leverage AI to do more and cost less. So we're already seeing how founders can leverage tools that will 10x their work output.
Awesome. If we can have another big round of applause, a welcome to Wenee and Thomas Derricott. Yeah, thank you so much. These events don't happen without our sponsors, and last night we did hear from our gold sponsors, but I would also like to highlight that throughout the day we do have some sponsored events on from our silver and bronze sponsors throughout the conference, as well as our blue sponsors. And then on top of that, we have a number of people who are in kind sharing their support with us to help us bring this event. So if we could just have a big round of applause, that would be... So this session is going to butt right into the cutting edge theme. You will have some time in between that to change rooms. But we've asked Dr. Dylan Saunders to come back this year and speak to us. Last year, we had just heard about the large investment from the Queensland government and federal government into PsiQuantum. And to find that we had a local person who was working at PsiQuantum, we're not running a marathon here. It's a big sigh. It's a big sigh. Working at PsiQuantum was really exciting for us, and so we hunted him down through a friend of a friend of a friend and our middle-aged